Alrighty, looks like we're good to go. Welcome back to yet another Moonshire Monday. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm so sorry for being 7 minutes late. That's really rude of me. I'm sorry for that. Just running a bit behind this morning. This afternoon already for you. That's really cool. Thank you all for being here. We got a lot of folks in the chat already, waiting in the waiting room. We got Wolf and Pizza Med, Future 34. Thank you so much for being here. Rescue Squad, Cope, Allfather, Moonshire Monday. Yes, indeed, I will be going to McDonald's after this stream. That is certain. There is no doubt about that. Benny ADM, Just a Dot, Alex, LunaWire. Thank you so much for being here. Did I change the name of the stream? I wanted it to be working on new artwork or designing new artwork. So today I'm going to be working on some promo art. Seeing me with the beard is the funniest. I know. I was running behind and I couldn't shave. I don't really rock a beard very well. It's really scraggly. I know. It doesn't look very good. I woke up late, so I'm just like, okay, I'll let it be. It was either deal with the beard or deal with another like 5 minutes of waiting. So we get to deal with the beard. How's it going? So today I want to work on some promotional artwork because there's a few things that I was working on, but you might notice that the thumbnail for the stream, I think that the thumbnail for the stream is just an automatic creation from the, what is it, the background, the banner on my channel. So give me 1 second while I pull that up. That would be here in banner. Doesn't it usually start an hour before? No, it normally starts at 10 a.m. CT. So it was supposed to start earlier than it did, but not by that much. Oh my gosh, my keyboard got screwed up. Oh, and it's lagging really bad. Okay. So this is the logo, or actually, are you guys able to see it? Where's the frame? Or actually, no, this is the whole frame. So the thumbnail is just this rectangle. And the reason it's set up this way is this same image here is used for the channel. It's used for the banner of the channel. Give me one moment while I pull that up too. I have a bunch of stuff I want to show real quick. And I'm going to use a different browser from what I'm streaming on because YouTube always crashes. So let's see what that would be. You've been wanting to make a game like that since you were 12. Yeah, it feels like a pretty common one to want to work on. Okay, give me 1 second. I screwed up the dumb. I'm just trying to get to my channel, but it's being really annoying. Stop! Ah! Okay, I'm really frustrated. I'm sorry about that. It took a lot of effort to open up this dumb window. Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, is that this image here is the same image that gets used here in the banner up at top. And it's the same image that gets used here in the stream thumbnail when I don't have one set. So the purpose of this image is to serve a few purposes. It's supposed to be the thumbnail for the stream and also the banner image. But the thing about the banner image too is that it changes how much it shows. So I had to keep the logo portion right in the middle because when you go to mobile, it actually still doesn't do that. If you open up my page on mobile, it slices off even more of the image. So it's really just the text portion when you look at the page on like the YouTube app. Just a lot of time spent. It's been programmed for years. Yeah, exactly. It's just a really, really long process. Just recently started switching the style of my game to pixel art. Developers like you who share tips are really helpful. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I like pixel art just because like it's really approachable. It still is not easy. It still takes a lot of work to like get really good at it. But I would say it's generally easier to get going. Like you can start making sprites right away. And you can start working with sprites that aren't very good. Like when you make your own sprites, you can still work with this and still make a game out of it, even if the sprites themselves aren't like super great. Working on pixel art while watching, that's awesome. So cool to hear. So the reason I wanted to look at this is possibly look at other fonts. And also I might experiment a little bit with adding the new logo that I was working on, because I started working on another logo a few streams ago, and let me pull that one up because I like that logo a lot. I think it was this one. Okay, so this is the new logo that I'm working on. I wouldn't say it's final by any means, but I think that this kind of matches the style that I'm going for. I like it overall. So if I wanted to use this logo with this image, we can do like a side-by-side and like actually compare it. So this image is called draft. It's still, this whole thing is still just a draft. So let me... There we go. So it looks more like fantasy. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too, is since my game is like a fantasy game, it kind of makes sense to lean more into this style. And I do think the original logo accomplishes that too. But the new one is just very whimsical. I really, really like it. So in order to make it more striking, I am going to give it some drop shadow. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And we'll turn this... Am I able to turn it black? I don't know if I can just turn its color. I actually... Is there a way to change the color of a white... And can you change the levels of it? This should be really easy. I bet there is a way to do it. Inkscape recolor image. I'm just trying to colorize it. Filters. Okay, filters. Ah. Let's see. That still didn't work. Oh, live preview. Oh, there. Yeah, awesome. Look at that. Oh, that's so cool. Wow, I'm so happy that I was able to figure that out. That wasn't that bad at all. So this is how I do drop shadow, is like I actually just turn it into a black version of the sprite and then blur it. So then I'm going to move this one on top. What? No. There we go. Alright, that looks nice. That looks very, very nice. The black version looks like a band logo. Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah. We'll unblur it. Yeah, I could totally see that on like a t-shirt. So that looks pretty nice. With drop shadow, that looks pretty good. So we're gonna group that, and then while I'm here, I'm gonna go ahead and export this logo with drop shadow because I don't have a version of that yet. I'm gonna make this a lot bigger. Like, well, how big is the original version? The original version's very big. I can make this a large sprite. I'm gonna make it like 360 height. Yeah, that's huge. Logo, shadow. Alrighty, now that that's exported, I'm gonna go ahead and just swap these out. I want the size to be the exact same because I spent a lot of time sizing this one to make sure that it matched the like ratio I needed for YouTube. So I'm gonna make it the exact same. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then all I need to do here is center it all. And with Inkscape, you can select everything and then do a center line. And there we go. So I'm gonna do a full export and then do a before and after so we can compare them. So this is going to be draft 4. Oh wait, it's supposed to be draft 3. Oh well. I'll rename it. Alright. So that's the new one. And that's the old one. Oh, there we go. They're both good. The old one takes up more space. Actually, I think it needs to be a bit bigger. Or actually, was that the right one? Which one was it supposed to be? I think it's actually this one. So the size is good. Yeah, the size is perfect. I don't think I need to change anything with that. It looks so smooth. Thank you. Yeah, I think it looks pretty nice. Okay, I'm gonna call that good. I'm happy with that. In fact, I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm not gonna update the YouTube page right now. I'm gonna wait. Change the wish list. Yeah, I should. Let's change the wish list on Steam text. That's what someone in chat said. So let's do that too. Because I really wasn't satisfied with this font here. It's all right, but it really isn't that good. So if we go over here, let's ungroup this because it has drop shadow. Wait, ungroup. Okay, so all I want to do is try out some different fonts. Which, I'll go through all of the fonts that I have installed on my computer. Also, should it say wishlist on Steam or should it say something different? I think I'll keep it as this, but I'm gonna think about other things. Do I ignore chats or do I just happen to miss it? I feel like I answer most chats, but yeah, I miss some of them, especially when I'm in the zone. If you see that I'm like actively working on something, it's pretty possible that I'll miss messages. Can I try enter for a second? I don't know what you mean by that. Oh, enter the font. Okay. Let's see. Do I have that? I do not. So let me go online and install that. Okay. So someone suggested this font from Google Fonts. So let's go ahead and get this. Give me one moment while I install that. If anyone else in chat has suggestions for fonts, then let me know. Because really, I think that I'm just going to be going through tons of fonts to see which one works best, which complements the new logo the best. I think this is the one that I want. This is... Okay. There's that one. And there's this one. I probably have to restart Inkscape to install that. It's mostly just game content left before release. I feel like there's a lot of stuff I need to do before release. Do I use Finite State Machine for my character? Kind of. I mean, Finite State Machine, that's a very academic term. That's not really something that people in the software world really say, but in a sense, yes. It is a finite state machine because the player has its own set of states. Player, like player main, has all these properties, and then there's properties like walking, and then while a walking property is set to true, then you have different things happening. I think there is an actual state as well. There's lots of states that the player can be in. The way I have it set up with numbers is I'm changing that. It's different now. But it is still essentially a finite state machine where there's a certain number of states that the player can be in, and when the player is in any one of those particular states, it has different behavior. Like the way I had it here was if you're in state number 12, that's the transition state, or when you're picking something up. Again, I don't do it this way anymore, where it's a bunch of numbers. I'm refactoring it, but it is still essentially like this, where you have a state variable that controls how lots of different things operate. You don't know how to implement your character. My advice is to start small. Start very small. Make your player a square, and just make the player move around. Just a square. Don't worry about animations or doing anything crazy. Just start with a square. Keep it really, really simple. Game development is not easy. It's hard. So make sure you take it one step at a time. Oh no. Oh, I was going to try enter. So let me open that back up. This song is so nice. Wouldn't recommend Lua because it isn't efficient, but as long as it's not that big, I guess it works. Can you expand on that, Null? Because it's not efficient. What do you mean by that? Like, do you have some evidence that says it's not efficient? If you do, I'd love to see it, because I've been using it a long time, and it is the most efficient. It has all the efficiency you could possibly need. So, like, show me what you got. I'm interested in having my opinion changed. I don't know anything about Lua, lol. Yeah, I'm really interested to hear what Null has to say about that, because you're making some strong claims that it's not efficient. I don't know what you mean by that. I'm really, really curious, because I don't think it's inefficient at all. Okay, so let's check this. Yeah, I need to be kept on task, otherwise I'm gonna forget what I'm doing. Enter is a very basic, but let's give it like... I like this font a lot, by the way. It's very simple, but it has just enough personality that it looks nice. I think this is a good one. I don't know if it's going to match this particular logo, but we'll try it. I'm going to keep a whole bunch of these. So let's give it the drop shadow treatment. Also, I'm realizing that my drop shadow treatment is kind of dumb. Like how I'm creating new instances and stuff like that. It's kind of not very efficient, but at least it works. Have I ever done an art competition for Moonshire? An art competition? No, that's an interesting idea. I think something like that would be cool. Something I would consider doing in that same that same idea is a modding competition, because I'm planning to put a lot of work into making the game moddable, and I think it would be very fun to have a competition where like someone like a boss mod, whoever makes the best boss, because I think it's going to be pretty easy to mod in specific bosses, like custom ones, and I bet some people are going to be able to mod in some content that's better than stuff that I could make. Lua is slower than low-level code because it runs through an interpreter, while C or C++ runs directly on the hardware, which makes it 10 to 30 times slower depending on how big the project is. Yes, Love2D, the engine that my game is running on, is a C and C++ based engine. Like, we can go to Love2D GitHub, and we're going to pull up the code for Love2D. The low-level engine code of Love2D is all C++ based. So you are right, that low-level engine code should be written in C++ or C because it's able to directly interact with the embedded like systems. But in terms of developing the logic of the game, it does not matter if it's run through an interpreter, because it's interpreted right away when it loads, and then it's just logically running off the processor after that. Once it's in memory and it's running, it's not going to be running any slower or faster. It's all of the embedded processes that you're concerned about. You're making a good point that if you were trying to like embed the entire application from low level to high level using Lua, that would be probably difficult, and it probably wouldn't be as efficient. But the all of the performance concerns are handled on an engine level using the embedded code, like you're suggesting. And then all the game logic is handled using Lua, which is a much more robust, easier to use language compared to C and C++. Because that's the thing. C and C++ are very old, somewhat archaic languages. Not archaic, they're just missing a lot of convenient features that modern languages have. C++ has like the pointers you have to deal with, everything is strongly typed, and that's not necessarily good or bad, it is just more work. It's really, really good when you're working with embedded stuff, but in terms of game logic, it's kind of just a bit of a tedious thing to work with when you could be using something lightweight like Lua, which is very lightweight, very simple, not strongly typed. It's a lot more convenient to script things compared to C++. That's my whole point. I think that you are making a good point that the embedded processes do need to use embedded code, and they do. But in terms of the game logic, it is not impacted by performance at all. It doesn't matter for most games, though, because even something like Python is fast enough to run game logic. Yeah, is that as long as the embedded processes are handled with that stuff, any plans for Moonshire demo being updated? Yeah, like that's basically all I'm working on right now, is trying to get the demo updated. The whole goal is I want to re-release the demo, essentially. The demo is, like you said, it's been a long time since it's been updated, and it's just, the game is so different. There's so much stuff I want to be there, or be in the game. Been a long while since I attended one of my streams. How's everything going? It's going good. Thank you for being here. It's going slow, I'll give it that, but it is going okay. But computers are getting stronger to balance the weight of programming languages, and it runs on any program, so there's always pros and cons. And I bet in some cases that user Null was right, where there are certain actions that may or may not be faster. Like, I bet that the processes of reading and writing data from the hard drive probably is faster on a microsecond level if you use C++ over Lua. But I don't think that the gameplay logic... I didn't know Love2D was C++ using Lua for scripting, like my engine. Doing research. No big deal at all. No, and that's the thing, is that the scripting is Lua, and the embedded systems are using C++. It's an awesome like hybrid. So it's the best of both worlds, kind of like, because you make some really, really good points that it is important to consider the architecture that you're using and what everything is running off of, because that's a really big factor. Lua on its own, you're right, an interpreted language is not going to immediately be as performant as something that's compiled. But since it has like kind of the combination, it works out really nicely. Good to see me again. Thank you. Or I hope that you're talking. Other languages, you have pointers as well. Any object pointer hidden under the hood. They just don't have the pointer syntax to clean up data. Exactly. Is that Lua even uses references to other stuff? When you call like functions and stuff, you can refer to other data, and it does behave like a pointer does. But the difference is that the syntax is very clean. It's very easy to work with. C++ has a bit of... It's not that much worse. It's the same. C++ is not that much harder to work with. It's just slightly less convenient than some more modern languages. Like C# has tons of like quality of life features in it that C++ just doesn't have, because C++ is focused more on like the performance and low-level embedded stuff. I wouldn't agree with that personally. I don't own a powerful computer because it's very expensive here, and I played Moonshire on a 32 or 320 and got 20 FPS. I want your game to have an audience. Really? Okay, so that's a really good call out, that even the demo in its current state, like you're saying, it was having performance issues. That's good to know. I actually didn't realize that on super low level machines. So you said on a 320M. A 320M. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Is that a processor? Is that a graphics card? Can you expand on that? Because I'm curious what your specs are, because I want to test it. I tested the game on lots of low-level machines. MacBook Pro, NVIDIA 320. Oh, okay. Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. In fact, I don't even know how you managed to run. How did you run the game? How did you even run the game? Because that's an Intel Mac. The game doesn't run on Intel Macs. Hey, can you add some... Oh, okay, so that kind of explains why the performance wasn't very good. It's because you were emulating it. Hey, can you add something like a way to have different weapons? Yeah, like the game is gonna have lots of different weapons. It already does have a lot of weapons, but sorry, one second, I'm focusing on a lot of different things. Love the recent video. Been working on a game lately, and Finite's always more work than it appears. It totally is. Even reworking systems multiple times for the same game is such a great learning process. That's what I get out of this whole thing too, is that even though I've been redoing the same stuff like kind of over and over again, I am learning so much. The level of skill I have today compared to a year ago, it's like night and day. I feel so much more confident with all the stuff I'm working on. It's amazing. But the downside is that my game still isn't done. It's like not even close. What I do for work outside of game dev, I used to be a software developer. I used to work for Microsoft, but a couple of years ago I quit, and now this is my full-time thing. I didn't know I was emulating it. Yeah, it's just like an extra layer to get it working, because at the moment, it works on Macs, but it only works on the Silicon Macs, the M1s, M2s, etc. The Intel Macs currently have a problem where they don't run natively, and I'm still struggling to fix that because Steam is in a really awkward place right now. And I'm gonna see if I can actually pull up the article about it. Steam Intel Mac support, because it's questionable. There's this Steam on Mac OS 10.15 or 10.1.5. Sorry, 10.15. I mean, I need to slow down. Oh, sorry. This is 32-bit versus 64-bit, but that is still essentially the same thing because there isn't 32-bit Silicon apps. So I think mainly the problem is supporting 32-bit Intel Macs is going to be a really big problem. I don't actually know how to do it because of these restrictions that Steam is implementing. Essentially, there's security concerns with Intel and 32-bit Macs that they don't really want to support it at all anymore. And what are my options to make sure I can continue to play my 32-bit Mac apps? We have Steam Play, which means you have purchased your Steam. Consider not upgrading to macOS 10.15 or above. In my Udemy course, you teach how to do cool stuff like these smooth movements, attacks, 3D trees. I would not say exactly. I don't think so, because the tweens, like the stuff that you're talking about with the smoothness stuff, is just using a library called Flux. So if you're interested in that, look up Flux Love2D. It's really, really convenient. I stick with C++ for any project since that's what I'm comfortable with. People say it's hard, but I like using references or pointers to avoid copies with structs. I'm totally with you. I like using Lua, even though in many ways Lua is not super convenient. And I'm also with you that sometimes having direct access to the pointer and syntax can be nice, because there have been times actually when I'm working with this data and it's not always easy to tell if the data is a reference to some other data or not. Because in fact, I even wrote in a copy function, copy. Yeah, I got this function called copy because I was having problems where whenever I was using other tables to work with other tables, like I was working with two tables at once, I kept noticing that the data was getting updated in the original reference. And so I made this, or I guess I grabbed this function from Stack Overflow, which all it does is it takes a table and it creates a copy of it so that you can work off of the copy. It's exactly what you're talking about with references, where I was having problems where I was accidentally updating the original reference, and this creates a copy of that reference so that I'm not actually updating it anymore. Maybe add like a library to buy books to learn new skills. Interesting. Making a living with game dev is really hard. Yeah, it is. In fact, I would say that I'm not even doing that successfully. Every month I'm losing money. I am not making money off of my projects or off of YouTube. If I wanted to make money off of YouTube, I'd need to post a lot more, and I need to start doing sponsorships, and I don't really want to do that. I want to focus more on making the game, and like when the game releases, there's a chance it'll make money. I hope it does. I think that the game will make money once it releases, but there's a chance that it won't. Excuse me. There's a chance that it won't. And a lot of people that make games release their games and then they don't make money. I think that's a really real concern. So I'm still skeptical of the whole game dev as a full-time thing. You know, at least being an indie dev. Working for a company makes sense, but selling your games for money as an indie dev is just such an ambitious goal, because you're competing with big companies. Like, even though we're making indie games, we're still selling games for a profit, and that's what companies are doing. Like, teams of people are doing the exact same thing, and they're putting out products that are really hard to compete with. I think with your content and your audience, you have a really good chance of making a good living off YouTube. I think so as well. That's why I quit with confidence. Even though I'm losing money every month, and I'm totally okay with that. I saved up a lot of money while I was working. I was very cautious about living below my means, and I live on nothing, basically. I live a very modest lifestyle, and that's what enables me to do this. If I was the type of person that liked to go on vacations or like to go out and do a bunch of stuff, I don't think this would be possible. Or if I had like people dependent on me, if I had a family that I had to pay for, or if I had a house that I had to take care of, that would put a wrench in the gears for sure. Because I don't make enough money. I don't even make enough money to cover my rent. I'm able to pay for my rent because I saved up for it. And once this game releases, I think it's likely that the game will make enough money to cover that stuff. But I think that it's also likely that it won't. I think that it's possible that the game won't make money. I hope that it does, and I think that it will. But I'm trying to be realistic here. That's why I took so much time building up my career to make sure that I was able to do this comfortably. I have never made a single penny from making games because my engines are open source and no one donates. I do this because I have dependent salary. Yes, I was the same way, where with YouTube and game development, I was supplementing it with my day job. That's how I was able to do that. Am I unemployed right now? Technically yes, but that's not how I really see it. I'm self-employed. This is my job, and I do make money. I have the YouTube channel, and that makes some money. I have my Udemy courses, and that makes some money. So I'm not just living off nothing. I'm not like a welfare baby. I'm doing fine. I'm paying for myself, and it's doing okay. But at the same time, it's not sustainable. This is not a lifestyle I would recommend for people because it's not sustainable. It's sustainable when you have a pile of money that you saved up for it, but once that money runs out, what are you gonna do? You're back to square one. And my goal for people is that they are actually able to get to the finish line. Because if you never get to the finish line, what's the point of any of this? I want people to realistically be able to get to the end of their projects. And if you run out of money and you can't pay your rent, then you're not going to be able to finish your game because you're going to be so focused on like needing to work for money to pay your bills. Game development is a hobby. It's like being an artist. If you were a painter, I always compare it to painting. If you were a painter and you were really good at painting, would you quit your job immediately? I don't think that you would. You would have to turn it into a business that generates income, and even then, you're competing with all these other artists. It is not easy to do that. Also, what's the deal with my overlay? I'm noticing that all the profile pictures aren't showing up for some reason. That's really frustrating. Why is it doing that? What do I recommend to start with becoming a game dev? My recommendation is just to do it right now. All of the game engines, all of the frameworks are free. So my recommendation is just to download Unity or GameMaker or Godot, download any of them, and just start making a game. A simple one, a really easy one. Just put a square in the game and make the square move around. And just iterate on that. Do not download an engine and immediately start trying to make a Moonshire clone, because that would take... It's not possible. You have to learn how to do it. That's like buying a canvas for your painting and immediately trying to draw like a hyper-realistic human thing. It's not going to look good. It's going to look bad. You need to start with something simple. Like, iteratively build up. That's my advice. Why not Love 2D? Why not Love 2D, I would say, is... I recommend Love 2D. I recommend it. I think that you should try it out. But Love 2D does have a higher, steeper learning curve compared to Unity, because you do all of the development just in a text editor like this. All of the development is just coding and scripting using Lua code, and some people might not gel with that very well compared to GameMaker or Godot. Those have an actual like UI. They have an interface where you can see the game, you can see all the stuff, and you can script things without having to code it. You do have to code things, but there's a lot of like development work that's not actually just coding. Meanwhile, Love 2D, it's pretty much just coding when it comes to development. Have I tried streaming on YouTube and Twitch together? Yes, I have. I just prefer streaming on one platform at a time. I like having one chat where I know everyone is at. That's just more convenient, and it feels more cohesive. Having it split up felt really weird to me. And so I'm going to stick with one or the other. I'll probably stream on Twitch again soon. Because I want to test my overlay. By the way, all the software that you see above me, where it shows the chat, that's custom software that I wrote myself. It's reading the chat in real time, and it's like scraping the data to display it above me, and it works really well. I'm really proud of it. But right now it only works with YouTube, and I need to test it more on Twitch, and that's just going to require me to stream on Twitch. So at some point I'll do that. I use Godot, but I pronounce it Godot. Yeah, I don't blame you. I think a lot of people do. I think I hear both. I think that most people say Godot, but if someone says Godot, I think that's perfectly fine too, because it's not a real word. It's a made-up word, so it doesn't have an official... Actually, it probably does have an official pronunciation, but it's like the word GIF, G-I-F. Like, the developer of GIFs said that it's pronounced GIF, and that's why I pronounce it GIF. But I think most people say GIF, and most people pronounce it GIF, even though I don't. I say GIF still. Yes, you say GIF too. Awesome, a fellow GIFer. What is realistic goal for making your first game? Should you make a devlogs? Probably not, because people. How do I put this? If it's your first game is going to be really rough. It's gonna be really rough. Like, it's the same as if it was your first painting. Would you want to make videos of you making your first painting? Maybe. You could. But you would need to frame the video as, I'm a complete beginner and this is what my process for learning was like. Your first game and your first painting are not going to be good. Since they're not going to be good, making devlogs about it is probably not super practical, unless you were spinning it as like, I'm learning and I'm making this video to document my learning process. I think that would be okay. But I think that devlogs and game development, they're both skills. Making videos is a skill, and making games is a skill. And these are skills that take years and years of practice to build up. years. So if you like have this game idea in your mind and you think that you're going to have it out the door and selling on Steam within a year, it's not going to happen. I think that the realistic timeline is that you spend a year developing really simple games just to practice. You're just making small projects to practice. It's the same as if you were painting. If you were learning to paint, I would say just do a lot of practice. Make lots of paintings, simple little paintings, just to get a feel for what the fundamentals are like. I want you to make really small, simple games just to get a feel for what coding and game development is like. And after you do that, you'll get a feel for which engine feels good to you, what makes sense, and from there you'll be able to actually start implementing your big ideas. Because I think a lot of us want to make big games like what I'm working on, but it took me a really long time to get here. Like, watch my most recent video. It took me like 16, 17 years to get to this point. And I'm still not really even close to finishing it. It's a learning process. Once you embrace the learning process and realize that this is the long game. I'm going to make lots of games in my life, and the first one is not going to be a good one. The first one's going to be kind of crappy because it's my first game. If it was my first painting, it's going to look bad. If it was the first song I ever played on piano, it's not going to sound very good because it's the first one. Go easy on yourself. And it's the same with devlogs and videos on YouTube. It takes a lot of work and practice to get good at making videos. My first videos were not good. They were crappy. So I think that you should make devlogs, but again, realize that they are not going to be super good at first. It takes a lot of practice. You start to pick up on little details of what makes videos good, how to mix the audio better, how to record better, because all of these things, it takes a lot of effort to learn. It's so much time to learn and get good at all these skills. That's the main thing. Starting out with simplicity is wonderful advice. I did just that, and I finally polished the game and released a demo next month. Awesome! That's so exciting. Congrats. I'm really happy to hear that. That's so cool. Is there anything that you didn't make for the game? Like, did you get any help yet? Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff for this game that I did not make. Specifically the artwork. So I did a lot of the sprites, like the player sprite I did, but the environment tiles. I think every single environment tile was created by someone else. So all of these water ripples, all of the floor tiles, all of these cliffs, even this tent, a lot of the stuff came from either paid asset packs or I commissioned it. So the cliffs, these cliffs were made by a pixel artist named Wolf. Not Wolf Eterni, a different person named Wolf, W-U-L-F. He actually has a YouTube channel. You can look them up. But then like the boss sprites were made by Tony. The home page was made by Tony. Like if I go back to the menu's broken in this build, so I can't show it. But that stuff was made by Tony. So I commissioned a lot of help with sprites, but every single sprite, every single tile, I edited in some way. Every single one. But the baseline, like the main content of those sprites, were made by someone else, and then I edited it to match my style. Now, I still made a lot of sprites myself. A lot of sprites were made by just me, just from scratch. But a lot of them came from some starting point, some asset pack, or I just commissioned someone to make something better. Because I know my limitations. I did all of the coding. All of the coding was done by me. Except for some libraries. Like, there's a few libraries in here that I did not make myself. But besides that, all of the coding in this game was done entirely by me, and I'm really proud of that. My videos were very bad, but my account got hacked. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's a huge bummer. In percentage, what is my estimated progress with Moonshire? It's hard to really say, because, like, when I released the demo, my answer to that question would have been 30%. And today, a full 2 years later, my answer is 20%. So I went backwards. I went from 30% to 20%. How does that happen? what happened is I became more realistic. And I started to realize that a lot of the content that I thought was done was not actually done. How did I go about the music of the game? I made the music myself. How did I find my indie team? I wouldn't call it a team, but it's a bunch of people that I met through Discord and Twitter. I'm interested in the whole process of game dev. I love the whole process. Yes, I would love to be like a game director at some point. I would love that, like, as I keep making games, like, assuming that's what I continue to do, which is what I want to do. I would love that, like, the next game that I work on, it's me as the director, and then I have a team of like 3 or 4 people doing the hard work. That's what I would really like to do. Because working on this game is so good. I'm learning so much. And I'm super good at coding. I think that in terms of code quality, I think that I know what I'm doing. But in terms of art quality, there are definitely other artists that can do much better than what I could do. Much better. Because it's all about that skill set. I've been coding my whole life. And I have also been doing artwork my whole life, but not nearly as much as coding. So since I have a lot more experience coding, naturally, I'm much better at coding. And I recognize that there are people out there that are swap, that are reverse. They do artwork way more than they code. And those are the people that I want to collaborate with. The people that have like a lifetime of art experience under their belt, because that means that they're better than me. I basically like collaborating with people that have some specific skill set that's better than what I have. I enjoy learning about game dev, but I don't have a dream game or know the destination of my journey. Is that okay? Oh, definitely. That's better. That's good. That's a good thing, because this is a problem that a lot of people fall into, is that they have this really lofty goal in mind. They have this dream game that's really, really ambitious. And it's so ambitious that they download a game engine, start trying to make this ambitious project, and they get overwhelmed and then they quit. And then they never make games again. It happens more often than you'd think. People think that game development is easy, and then they try to make their dream game, and then it doesn't work out, and then they just stop because it's too hard. You are in an amazing position where you can focus on building up your skill set. You can focus on the fundamentals. You can say, I'm in the learning phase. I'm going to make small games, small projects, and you can still post them, by the way. You can still post them on itch.io. You can still share them with your friends, and you can still have people play them. They might not be selling for money, but you can still post them and share them and have a good time making games. And then at some point along that process of doing that, you'll reach a point where you're like, okay, my games are starting to look and play good enough that I think people will start to pay money for them if I have a good final product. And once you reach that point, that's when you can start to kind of collaborate and put together a vision for a product that you can see the finish line of and actually like get to the end. Game dev is easy when you start getting good. Yes, I would say that game dev for me is easy because I know how to code really well, and I don't get stuck. Like I remember when I was starting out with coding, I would get stuck on very simple problems, and I would get stuck on them for hours, days even. And these days, I don't really get stuck on stuff like that anymore. I'm able to overcome most problems that I run into, with some exceptions. Like I was talking earlier about how Intel 32-bit Macs have a problem, and I don't actually know how to fix that problem. That's less of a coding logic issue, and that's more of like an infrastructure thing. But it is still a problem-solving thing. It is still a problem that I need to overcome. Are there better coders than you? Oh, totally. Someone that's... Because I've been coding since I was in high school. So, you know, that's 15 or 16 years or however long it's been. No longer than that, I guess. And there are people out there that have been coding for 30 years. And those people are definitely better than me, because they've been coding for longer than me. Like, I really do see skill as, like, something that you can just grind towards. It's like a video game where, like, people in real life, we have EXP bars and we have a level. And you could basically equate it to the number of years that you've been coding. Like, I've been coding for 18 years. I'm level 18. And like the really experienced engineers at like an engineering company, they've been coding for 30 years. They're level 30. And if I went face to face with a level 30 at coding, they would beat my butt. I would stand no chance. I gotta get 99 in every skill. Yep, exactly. I can't wait to max one day. That's gonna be a great day. I hope you all come to my maxing party when I get 99 coding. It'll be a good day. I'm still using Unity Engine, but when I try to learn it, I forget about it the next day. You know how you fix that? Is you just do it every day. If you work a little bit with Unity every single day, eventually you'll stop forgetting the little details. What's this game? Sorry, I should have the code. I should have the game up and running. I shouldn't be just like sitting, staring at my code. Let's go to a more interesting area. One thing that's I'm in a weird spot right now with the game, because if I go back to the code, this project I'm working off of is actually called MOONSHIRE Prefactor. Essentially, this is a build from maybe a month or two ago, because I basically split the game off into a new build that I'm now building off of, and the reason I did that is just because I'm ripping a lot of things out, but having this old version available is really nice because I can use it for the streams and I can refer back to it. Because when you're taking things out of your game, it's kind of scary, because when you remove something, sometimes you remove something and then once it's gone, you start to miss it. Like, you don't know what you got till it's gone, sort of thing. And when you remove a big section of code like this, and you save the file and you're done, sometimes it's really frustrating when it's like, oh man, I deleted that section of code, but I actually should have kept it. I shouldn't have removed that. And that's why version control with Git is super important, because you can revert your changes back to older versions. But also, I have this whole folder immediately available because I'm ripping so much stuff out. And I'm basically working off of two versions at once. I have this version that is functional, but the code is so sloppy. So it's functionally sloppy. And then I have my new version, which is just called MOONSHIRE. I have this new version that I'm working off of with very clean code, but the game is it's hardly functional right now. So this is what the game looks like right now. Actually, it's pretty good. It's basically the same. Yeah, I take it back. It's basically the same. But what I'm doing is I'm taking all of the prefactor features and I'm re-implementing them in the clean code. So I have this clean code here, and it's missing a lot of features that the functional build has. So I'm basically doing like a before and after comparison to smoothly and cleanly re-implement all those features into this clean version of the game, because this clean version of the game is so much better code-wise, even though it doesn't look that much different. You see what I'm working with here. It's not that much different. It's basically the same. But I'm spending so much time on this because as the game scales out, as I build more content, if the fundamental engine is not easy to work with, then I'm just signing up for a big pain in the butt. That's why the Steam build from a couple years ago, it was not ready to flesh out into a full game. Because if I took all of that code and just kept building on it, it'd become this giant mess of just copy-pasted junk. It would be horrible. It would have been horrible. Now, the good part about that would have been the game would have come out and you would have been able to play more content more quickly. But the bad part is that the code base would be so messy and bloated that building more content off of that would be a pain. So I made the decision just to focus on making the game as smooth to work with as possible, so that moving forward, building content for it is a pleasure as opposed to a pain. I want to work on this game for a while. Almost 90 watching now. That's awesome. I'm glad that so many people are here. And also, by the way, I very recently started memberships on this channel where you can sign up for YouTube memberships, and let me pull it up. And when you do memberships, you get access to the custom emotes. And I'm really proud of them. I put a lot of work into these emotes. I love them. And also, when you sign up, we're going to have custom roles on Discord. And you'll get priority responses to any comments that you post. And you have a little badge next to your name, and your name turns green in the overlay. Lots of really cool features. So if you're interested, I would love it if I get a few more people signing up for memberships. I would love that. But no pressure, only if you're able to. That's something that I would appreciate. But it's just something that I'm going to be putting a little bit more effort into over the coming months. M Dragon is back. It's me. I'm glad that you're here, Dragon Drummer. Will I put it on PlayStation? I would like to. I think that'd be really cool. But at the moment, I'm focusing on one platform at a time. And actually, even now, I'm focusing on multiple platforms at a time, because how do I say it? Even though I'm only supporting Steam at the moment, I'm supporting Steam on Mac and Windows and Linux. So that's basically 3 platforms at once, and already that's really obnoxious to deal with. It's a lot of work supporting multiple platforms. So if I release the game on PlayStation, that's signing up for a lot of extra work. And I'm not sure I want to do that yet. Now, once the game is in a really solid place, like the Steam build is good, solid, ready to go, then I can start to consider it. But even then, because the thing is, when I post a new build of the game, I would like to post it to all platforms at once. And the more platforms there are, the more tedious that process is. And I need to be cautious that I'm not doing too much where, like it's overwhelming, Why everyone stopped watching when I said there was almost 90 watching? I don't know. I'm sorry to hear that. It's no big deal. I think the view count is always going to fluctuate, going up and down. That's pretty normal with streams. What issues do I face with different builds for different systems? That's an awesome question. I have one really good example that I'll talk about, and that has to do with the high DPI monitors. Love 2D high DPI. So, this is one really good example where Mac computers have these Retina screens. Certain Macs have Retina screens, and I don't exactly know what that means, but essentially, it's that the pixel count is a bit higher than what the resolution identifies itself as. So if the what it comes down to is macOS says that it's an HD 1080p game, but the pixel count is actually higher than that. It's high DPI, very, very high pixel density. And I noticed that for certain users, when they would run the game on their high DPI monitors, some of the scaling would get messed up. Some of the scaling would get really messed up because macOS would be telling us that the resolution was one thing, but the DPI scaling was something different. And this is a problem that Windows does not have. On Windows, if Windows says that the pixel count is this, that's it. If the resolution is one thing, you know for sure that the resolution is that. But that's why Mac has these window from pixels and to pixels, the DPI scale. It's something that needs to be considered, and you only have to worry about that with Macs. So that's an example. Does Linux have that? I don't know. For example, on a Retina screen in Mac OS X with the high DPI, I've only noticed this with Macs. I don't know if it exists on other platforms. Let me let me see. Do non-Mac computers have high DPI scaling monitors? Well, if we can trust YouTube, or sorry, if we can trust Google AI, and high DPI scaling is a feature available on both macOS and Windows operating systems to adjust the size and text of icons. While macOS introduced display scaling, Windows offers similar options. Okay, so yeah, it's on both. It's on both, so it's something that I do need to account for. The reason why it's more of a Mac issue is because MacBooks have these Retina screens. So if you were using a MacBook, a lot of MacBook users were seeing this problem where the scaling is weird. You start with Love2D. What do I need to do now? What you need to do is start making some very simple, easy games and ease yourself into the process. That's how you do it. Will the game have co-op? Yes, I'm planning to have co-op in the game. I don't know like what the schedule for doing that will be, but with this rework, this recoding of everything that I was showing off a second ago, that's part of a big problem with this old version, is that player is a global variable and there's only one player. That's a really big issue with this code base, is that I have player set as a global and every other file is just referring to the one single player global, and that will not work at all if I want to implement co-op, because like the enemies are going to need to look at multiple different players. So in the rework, I changed it completely, so player is not a global anymore. There's a list of players, and all of the enemies like get that list of players first. Have I tried Godot engine? I have not. Well, I definitely downloaded it and used it, but I have not made any games with it, no. So not much. I still use GameMaker Studio 1. I'm a big fan of GameMaker. I think GameMaker is really good. I'm a big fan. What if you're on Linux? Do Linux systems also have Retina display? So, just to be clear, the Retina display thing that I was showing a second ago is an issue that is specifically related to the monitor. It is a monitor level issue. For a while, I thought that it was a operating system specific issue because macOS introduced the Retina screens, but today Retina screens exist on any operating system. So this isn't really a Linux versus Mac versus Windows issue. This is just, I need to support this style of screen. But this style of screen is particularly common with Macs, more than anything. In fact, when I was researching this, I don't even know where to buy a high DPI screen that's not Mac focused. It really is a Mac focused issue, but at the end of the day, it is still just a monitor specific issue. GameMaker doesn't seem to be that good for 3D. In general, I personally wouldn't recommend GameMaker for 3D because there are engines out there like Godot or Unity that are specifically catered to 3D, and I think the experience of making a 3D game on those would be better. And it's the same with Love2D. You can make 3D games with Love2D. You can make 3D games with Lover, which is a 3D fork of Love2D. I even made a Chalacade GitHub what did I call it? Pixel 3D. Pixel 3D is what I called it. If you go to my GitHub, I have this repo called Pixel 3D, and it has this 3D rendering concept. And this video that you see here, this is running in Love2D. So this is a Love2D video that you're seeing. It's just footage from a Love2D game, but like it's clearly running these 3D images, like these 3D models. It's voxels. What this code does is it takes any pixel art, and it converts it into a voxel format, and then it renders it like a 3D model. So even though this is a 2D engine, a 2D game framework, you can still render 3D graphics through it, because 3D graphics is just, it's still just a 2D image. Because think about it. When you're playing a 3D game, it's displaying it on a screen, a 2D screen. It's rendering a bunch of images from 3D models. So it's just a lot of coding logic to display things that make it look like. it. Very Minecraft-like. Yeah, exactly. Especially the sword. The sword looks like it's straight out of Minecraft. But it's not. I made the sword myself. Did I? The blade. This is it's so funny. This is how I do pixel art. Is the blade of the sword came from an asset pack. In fact, I'm gonna pull it up right now because I think it'll be interesting. The blade of this sword came from an asset pack, but I designed the hilt myself. And that's how I do pixel art a lot, is that like I Frankenstein a lot of pixel art together to make it look good. So let's see if I can find it. Because I have a lot of these asset packs. It's not this one. It's not this one. Oh, here it is. I think I took one of these blades, like up at the top. I think that's where I got the blade part. Yeah, that looks pretty similar. It's not that similar though. Like I made my blade into like a single edge rather than a double edge blade. And I think a lot of these are double edge blades. Yeah, I don't see the single edge design anywhere here, so I think I just kind of custom made that. But in terms of like the shading of the blade itself, I think that I used inspiration from one of these top ones. It's the red guy, yeah, maybe. Was the protagonist supposed to be in the game? What is he supposed to be? I think like the whole point is he's a self-insert. Is that it's just the character is you under the hood. I like a hooded character because it's very ambiguous. When I play a game, I like to project myself into the main character. So I really do like characters that kind of have like a vagueness to its design. The character is ambiguous intentionally because I kind of want players to envision whatever they want. And also, since you can change the color of the hood and stuff, it's really customizable. It's really personal. But who is he? I don't know. We're just gonna have to play the game and find out. Oh my gosh. Were you guys able to hear that? Oh my gosh, that scared me. I think they're doing construction on the building. That like actually freaked me out. You guys weren't able to hear that? Oh my gosh, that actually scared me. My whole apartment rumbled. I think that that actually freaked me out really bad. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, in the apartment below me, I can hear them drilling, and you guys can't hear that? Good. I'm glad that you guys can't hear that because it's really loud for me. The Sage's Apprentice. Oh my gosh, that's so funny, man. I used to I had a really big plan for like the Sage and the Apprentice and all that. I didn't do it. Bart Simpson totally. Yeah, in terms of like what's the identity of the character, I am waiting to finalize that until the game is like done and ready, because I am a big proponent of writing a story that fits the game as opposed to making a game that fits the story. I think that if you make a game that fits the story, you run the risk of making a game that has some misguided priorities. I think that the game should always prioritize fun and being interesting as over anything else. So That's why I'm focusing on making the game fun and interesting first. And then I'm going to write a story. Well, I'm in the process of writing a story, but I'm going to take that story and twist it to fit the game, because the game is what's the focus. The game is what needs to be good and perfect. The story needs to complement that. The story needs to supplement the game, and it can't be the other way around. I really do feel like if I wrote a story and then tried to make a game that fit that story, I think that the game wouldn't be as fun, because it wouldn't be focused on making a fun game. It's focused on making a game that suits the story, if that makes sense. So I've been about doing the same game for years. I'm kind of going through it in one of my projects. I switched perspective and game style many times. I still can't work until finish it until can't work until finishing it since 2019. I feel your pain, and the one saving grace is I hope that you are learning during this whole process. As long as you feel like your skill set is improving, no big deal. Because as long as you're getting better over time, then it's not a waste of time. Like, even though I've been working on the same game since 2009, I have been getting better since 2009. Each year, I get a little bit better. And so today, I'm able to do a lot of really cool stuff. It's a lot better than it was. So as long as you keep that mindset, as long as you are improving your skill sets over those years, then you'll be in good shape. It's no big deal. I love how my GitHub contributions heavily spike every July and August. That's a weird coincidence, if that's true. Yeah, it definitely did here. I remember what happened here is, like, I got really into working on web development during this time. Like, it's ironic. This is the period where I was kind of taking a break from developing the game, and I was working on the websites. Like, I made I wonder if it's still up. I hope it's still up. Bugs.chalacade.com, bugs.chalacade.com. Yeah, it is still up. Yeah, so I spent that time making this website. Really, really happy with this website. It's going to be so nice once the demo releases, because we'll be able to track bugs a lot more efficiently. Before, the way bugs were tracked was just so annoying. It would be like people would send me emails or post like chats in the chat, and then we'd have to like manually track it in an Excel sheet. It sucked. But now we have like a one-stop shop, and like, look, Intel Mac can't launch the game. Look how cool that is. And I think there's a way for me to deep link these too. I think if you do like bugs.chalacade.com, yeah, look at that. So that is so cool, because I'm able to share this specific bug with people, because this is how it works. Someone in chat is going to say, "Oh, I'm so irritated because I want to play the game on my Mac, but it's not working. What's the deal? Like, there's some bug going on. What's the deal?" And then I can just be like, "Yo, check out the bug." And I can just give them the link to the bug, and then you click on the link, and then it links directly to the specific bug with all of the specific details of that bug. That's so awesome. It's just so nice. And then that user who is monitoring it is able to just like keep an eye on that bug. They can watch this, because the progress will change from started to fix ready to done when like things get worked on and it gets deployed and stuff. So this is going to be super convenient for communicating all these problems with people. Because before there was like the Discord channel kind of helped, but even that wasn't very reliable. Because I can't play on my Mac because there's some bug going on. Yeah, I know. I'm very sorry about that. But it's that Intel 32-bit issue. There's a compatibility problem that's causing a lot of issues with it. How do I organize my files? That's an awesome question. I'm going to show the new project and explain it from there, because I am really proud of how I organized the files in this one. So really this project is organized the same as it was before. It's just much cleaner. So first and foremost, any code files, any Lua files are going to exist in the code folder. The only exceptions are main.lua because this has to be at the root, and conf.lua. This also has to be at the root. So these two files are always going to be at the root. But besides that, I have every Lua file within this code folder. So if you open up the code folder, I have a bunch of other folders within. And you can see in main.lua, it's referring to this game object, which exists in the engine folder. So I have this engine folder, and then I have this game file. So this is kind of like main 2.0. I have main, and main handles all of the love2d functions, but all that main is doing is it's referring to game and calling all of these game functions. So game, this really is the main file. This is where all the main logic happens, is in game. But even game is loading in a bunch of other files that are parallel to itself. You can see within this engine folder over here, I have the game.lua file, but then I have a bunch of other specific like engine categories like physics. All of the physics functions for the engine exist in here. All of the update logic exists in here. Well, not all of it. The update loop is here, but even this update loop is just calling specific individual functions that call other functions to handle the update loop. But again, game is the core focal point, and it branches off to all these individual like categories, and that's how things are organized. Like input. Input is somewhere else for some reason. Oh, no, I just can't read. Input's right here. So all this input code is anything input related is going to happen here. Really convenient. So that's just the engine level stuff. And by the way, when I say engine, that's not talking about that's still not the C++ and C code. I say engine. That basically just means like the fundamental stuff to make the scripts run properly. This is just making the game run. The engine is still love2d. That's still C and C++ code that runs below this engine folder. So there's a lot more to it than just this. I love this object type programming, but in the Lua style. Yeah, is that Lua is not an object-oriented programming language, but it is so robust and flexible that you can basically treat it like one. The way I'm doing this is how you would do it in an object-oriented language, where you basically treat all of these as classes. And that's what I'm doing. I have this draw function, and it's just in a separate file and being loaded in. You could load in this draw function into any other object. I could give this draw function to anything. It's a module. It's like a class. You could load this class into any other object. It's just, in my case, I'm loading it into game so that I keep it all isolated into one place. You use object-oriented in your project. In the end, it's just tables. I mean, yeah, it's true. How do I make shooting mechanic for my 2D run-and-gun platformer in Game Maker Studio? That question is that's a loaded question, so to speak, because making a run-and-gun shooter involves so many things. It involves a camera and a character that you can move around. It involves spawning and despawning objects. It involves AI. It involves so many things. I think that you're jumping ahead a bit too much. I think you need to take a step back and start with making a game that's very, very simple. And what game am I talking about? Oh, you guys know what it is. It's Pong, or Atari Breakout. So I recommend making Pong or making a game like this. Rather than making a run-and-gun game, my advice is to make a game like this and treat it as a challenge to yourself. It is a challenge that you have to overcome in order to learn game development by making a really simple little project like this. And you might think to yourself, making something like this is easy and boring. I don't want to spend my time making something like this. But let me tell you, a game like this is not very easy. Like, it looks easy, but it's not. It requires a lot of stuff. You have to learn how to draw sprites, draw graphics, spawn objects, despawn objects. You can have effects, you have a scoring system, you have saving, you have upgrades, you have so much stuff. this is what I think you should start with. A run and gun game is much more complex than this. So I think that you should start with something easier is what I recommend. If you have to ask how to make a run and gun game, I think that you should focus on something simpler before you do that. Not the Pong card again. I know. Pulling out the Pong card. Once again, pulling out the Pong. But I have to say it. I just have to do it because it's the best advice I have. Can I use assets? Of course. If I use assets in my game, like this dummy right here that you see, this is an asset. This is an asset. This is from an asset pack. Of course you can. This house, it came from an asset pack. I'm gonna try and find some other ones. The tree, the leafy part of this tree came from an asset pack. This flame animation came from an asset pack. The individual parts of this sunflower came from an asset pack, but I animated it and I gave it the ability to like wave and move in the wind. That required a lot of work on my end. Better Pong than Pogs. Yeah, I would agree with that. Pogs are kind of out of style, I'd say. Something's wrong with the game. It's not letting me click anymore. Everything from assets overused. I mean, that is true. The thing about assets is assets are only a problem when people recognize them. If people don't realize that a sprite is from an asset pack, then they won't care. They are only going to care if it looks like it came from an asset pack. So in my opinion, none of these sprites that came from an asset pack look like they came from one. They look like they fit the game really nicely. Like this anvil, did this come from an asset pack? I don't think it did. I think I actually made this anvil. But this dummy definitely came from an asset pack, and this flame animation came from an asset pack. And the question is, will players care that I took these from a paid asset, that I paid money for these? Will they care? Or will players insist that every single sprite comes from like custom-made sprites for this game? And in some cases they do care, and in some cases they don't. In my opinion, I think people don't really care if the environment or props come from asset packs. I don't think that they care that this sunflower exists online as a paid asset pack, or maybe a free one. I don't know. I don't think that people care that this flame asset is purchasable online. But I think that they would care if the game felt so generic that nothing felt original. There has to be originality to it. If I just took other people's sprites and put them in the game, it would look generic and it would feel boring and lame. And it would look samey. It would not look original. But my character is original. All of the weapons are like these characters are original. The way everything blends together is original. And the coloration is original. The shaders are original. The animations are original. I animated, like, even though a lot of these assets start from asset packs, I spend a lot of time animating it. Like, I feel like I consider myself an animator at this point with all the animation that I do, even if the sprites themselves come from, like, a starting point. And also, I commissioned people. I paid Ellie Sprites to make this farmer here. And sure, I could have made it myself, or I could have used an asset pack, but I think that the way she designed it is the best option. I love this version. So I think people really only care that if the final product looks good, that's the main thing. And using assets runs the risk of it looking generic because you're using generic assets, but as long as you edit it to fit your style, and as long as you're using a variety and it's not too samey, then people won't mind. It's just a tool to get to the final product faster. I hope that makes sense. The fog is a texture with transparency that slowly moves across the map. Yep, exactly. And I put that in there just so that it adds a little bit of extra movement to the scene. Because someone was talking about this earlier, where you should try to make it so that your game doesn't look like a still frame image. There ideally should always be some movement. So in my game, I have the moving, swaying grass and the flowers, and the petals falling from the sky, and then the moving fog texture, and then the NPCs have idle animations. So all this stuff adds up to have a lot of movement in the scene. And I'm really, really happy with how it all comes together. Same with like the flames and stuff. By the way, this flame came from an asset pack. Problem with asset packs is the art style and direction is not fitting with your own art. Yes, that is very true. And that's why, I'm not exaggerating, every single sprite and tile that I put into my game is edited by me to match my style in some way. There is not a single asset pack out there that I was able to take one for one, put into the game, and call it a day. I always, every single time, needed to edit it in some way or another to fit my style. Either I needed to change the colors to match my style, change the shading, change the animation, something about the sprites, even the sprites that I pay people for, even the sprites that I commission from people, I make edits to 100% of the time, because there's an art direction to my game that is very specific, and it's not just automatically going to be out there. So no matter if you're using assets or not, you're going to have to use your art skills in some way or another to make it cohesive. There's no way around that. Unless you used one single asset pack that was so all-encompassing that you literally didn't need to make anything. And in that case, I would be worried that your game would be too generic. For those who played the original Spyro the Dragon games, remember when Sparks the Dragonfly would turn around and look at you when you stopped moving for a bit. Oh, that's funny. I love stuff like that. Yeah, I would love to do that too in my game. In fact, in an earlier build of this game, I had an idle animation for the character, for the player, where he would like look around and there was blinking eyes. But I need to re-implement that because I'll actually show it. When I redid the colors for the player, I changed it so that the player was really, really... What the heck? Oh, geez, that was scary. I thought I lost some data. So this is the player's sprite sheet. And this is what it looks like when every layer is combined together into one image. But the thing is, the player is actually made up of different pieces. It is a layered sprite because sometimes he holds weapons. Here, I'll show that real quick. What the... My mouse isn't working. Give me 1 second. My mouse stopped working for some reason. Oh my gosh, what the heck? My mouse is broken. I screwed something up. Oh, I must have accidentally I remember there was an earlier part of the stream where I deleted this and then I saved the file to demonstrate something. And then I undid it, but then I forgot to save again. So I broke my game because I deleted that code. Okay, that's better. Okay. So as I was saying, in my game, the player has layers. If you look closely, the axe is like behind the player's shoulder, and it's only able to achieve this because of the layers. The other thing that it accomplishes is it allows you to recolor different parts of the player. So I'm going to go to... I'm going to show this too. So this is the player sprite sheet with all the different layers. And you can see that there's like the eye layer and the head layer and the body layer. The reason it's set up this way is because I want the player to be able to recolor this character using whatever colors they want. So this is an example of the player fully colored red. Flops, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I was saying that there's other colors though, like this one, blue. And I have this also split up into each of the different layers. So like I have the head layer for blue. This is what the head layer looks like for blue. And the idea, the goal is that players, when playing the game, will be able to mix and match the different colors for the different layers, and they'll be able to try out like a blue head with a red body with yellow eyes and gray boots. And by letting players do that, I think that we'll be able to come up with a lot of cool combinations that make a really neat design. So that's the reason why I kind of put it up this way. Bro earns money even before completing the game. Yep, I would say that the YouTube channel counts as that. Same with the Udemy course. I'd say that those are two big sources of income at the moment. But even still, in terms of game development providing an income, it's not quite there yet. But it'll get there, especially when the game releases and as I put out more content. I'm very optimistic about the future of this game and the future of this channel. I really am. I think it'll be good. So that whole layering system was a really big obstacle. Now, what I wanted to show next, too, is that with my extra rework, I'm changing it yet again. Another donation, Dead Zone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the donation. Really appreciate that. I'm changing the setup again, where instead of having a blue head and a red head and a purple head, instead, I'm going to have a head different set of layers. Let me see if I can show this properly. This is gonna be really hard to explain, but all of these are different parts of the single head. So this is the like light shading, this is the medium shading, this is the outline, and this is the dark shading. So the combination of these four files creates one, it creates the head. It creates this. But like, look at this upper left image. You have four colors here. This is the point, is you have four colors in this one head. You have the black outline, you have the red, main red color, and then you have the light shading and the dark shading. So there's four colors that makes up every frame. And so I split this frame into four images. I have the outline, like this white outline here, is just the exact same outline from this image. You can see it's the exact same. It's just this black part is this white part, okay? So this handles the outline of the head. Then I want to handle the red, like the main red part of the head. That's this. So this is the main red portion, but it's just colored white. So you can see this is the fully completed head, and the red portion is right here. So when I recolor this, it's gonna look like that. And then I do that same thing for the light. This is the light shade, just a small arc. And you do the same thing with the dark shade. It's just this little dot and this little shade down at the bottom. You can see that right here. So, what's the point of doing this? Why did I split this head into four different sprites, all for the same frame? And it's because now that each piece is split up, I'm able to recolor each piece individually. So, for example, I can take this bold outline and I can color it black. I can take this light shading and color it light blue. I'll color it light blue. I can take this main color and color it regular blue, or maybe like a saturated blue like this. And I can take the dark shading and color it dark blue, like this. So then I have this dark shade, the main shade, the light shade, and then the bold outline. And then when you combine all three of those together, we have a brand new color for the player end to end. And the reason this is better than this blue head is the problem with this blue head is I needed to make a different head.png. I had to make a different head.png for every individual color. So if there was like 25 different colors in the game, I would need to make 25 different versions of this exact same sprite sheet here, just for the color. It would be the exact same, but if I wanted to make like a green version, I would have to take this and then color this green and then make a light version and then do this. And then I would save this sprite as a new head sprite, and then I would end up with 25 different head sprites. But now I don't need to worry about that. Instead, I have these. And I can individually recolor these programmatically. Like, that's why I have it set to white. Because a white sprite like this, when it's recolored in-game, it retains its full color. So when in the game, when I'm rendering this shape, and I color it green, it'll just look normal. And same with this one. When I render this shape, and I render it light green, it'll just look normal. And you combine this shape with this shape, I'll go ahead and do that. You combine this shape right here with this shape right here, it starts to come together. Same with this one. If I take this dark shape right here, and then I grab it, and then I put it in and paste it in, it's starting to look a little bit better. And then finally, same with this one. I'm going to take this, I'm going to color it black. I'm going to grab this sprite and paste it in. And that is how the player is going to be constructed every single frame. And this is just the head. It goes through that process for the head alone. And then it's going to go through that process again for the arms, the belly, the legs, the other arm, and the eyes. It has to do that for each individual portion. Like, this is what the belly looks like. This is just the belly portion. But even this, I had to split up into, like, the belly main and the belly light. So you can see, like, the light shading. It's very specific, very small. But thanks to the setup, it can be recolored to any color. So that's the other thing, is with this setup, I'm confined to only the colors that I manually create sprite sheets of. But if I have a texture that's white that I can reprogram programmatically, that means that there is an infinite number of colors. You can literally put any color to any one of these pieces and construct this head with any number of colors. So the amount of customization that you can do in the game is infinite. And also, it's convenient for me, because now I don't need to create all these individual sprite sheets. I can just use this programmatic shading system that I made to render the player every frame, and it's easier for me to work with, and it's easier for other people to mod. It's like a win-win-win. Wise Shalicade, thank you. Would I ever put this to a console if a new 16-bit can't if a 16-bit cart system was ever produced? I mean, if there was a console out there that was worth... basically, to answer your question, is if there was a console out there that was worth porting to, then I would port to it. But right now, there's higher priority consoles like Switch or PS5. I have a higher priority of porting to those consoles. But if another console came along that was worth porting to, I would definitely consider it. You said a 16-bit cart system? That's really interesting. Excuse me. Would I need a theming system so the user picks a primary color and you provide the shades to match? Yeah, I could totally do that. Because that's totally something that could happen. Because the reason you can't just make this all one shades of gray is that this shade of green right here and the light shade of green, it's not just increasing the brightness. So one thing that I did consider, and I'm going to go ahead and show this real quick. I'm not going to save any of these changes, so I'm just going to delete this. One thing that you can do with these textures is you can make it grayscale. So if I turn this into grayscale like this, actually, let's make it a little bit brighter too. Okay. Whoop. So the alternative to what I did. So all of these sprites here, like this is a completely white texture. And the reason why it's completely white is because when a white texture has a color applied to it, it retains that color completely. But if it was not white, and let's say if it was off-white, like let's say it was gray, if you apply this bright green color to this gray texture, it's going to mix it. It's going to mix this gray with the green, and it's going to turn this bright green into more of a dark green. So when you have a white texture and you color it green, it stays bright green. But if you have a gray texture and you color it bright green, it's not going to be that full bright green. It's going to be a slightly more gray version of that green. So the reason why that's necessary, or why that's relevant, is if you have a texture like this, where you have a kind of bright white section, a gray section, and then a dark gray section, you can colorize this. Am I able to do that through... I don't know if I can. No, I can't do that because it's already grayscale. But when you apply, like let's say I took this green color and I just blankly applied it to this whole image, it would apply the full green to this. It would apply a slightly more gray version of the green to this, and then a slightly more gray version of the green to this. So that is another option, is you can choose levels of gray where like this is the brightest version, this is the next brightest version, and this is the next brightest version. So with that, and then by the way, the black outline does not receive any coloration. So when you apply this bright green color to a black outline, it receives no change at all. But when the outline is white, that's why I made the outline white here, because white receives the full coloration, and if it was a black outline like this, and I try to apply green to it, it receives no coloration at all. Black does not receive any hue shift. So that's why it is the way it is. Now, the question is, why wouldn't I just do it this way, where I have the gray head, and then you can just apply a color to it in order to get this? The reason I don't do that is because it's the shading process that I go through is not just making it grayer. Like, this is what it looks like when it's a bright, here, I'll do even like this. This is the brightest green possible. This is a medium level of green, and this is a dark level of green. Do you notice a difference between these two images? Look really, really closely at the shades of green. There's a very subtle difference. The difference is that the brighter colors are less saturated than the darker colors. You can see it in this section over here on the left. So look down here on the left at this gradient. So this is what this color looks like up at top. It's as bright of a green as possible. It's as bright as possible. And you can see that the dot is at the very top. And when I click on the main coloration, you'll see the dot go down. We got another donation. Old School Geek, thank you so much. McDonald's Monday on me today. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Old School Geek. That's such a kind donation. Thank you. I was saying that the bright color is this top green. The middle color is like in the middle. And then the dark green is down below. So this is what changing the brightness looks like. Going up and down this gradient. That's a brightness shift. And that's what happens when you apply a color to one of these grayscale images, is it's just a brightness shift. But the colors that I use for my characters is more than just a brightness shift. It's a lot more than that. Well, it's not. It's actually not a lot more. It's a saturation shift too. So if you look really closely at the sides thing over here, the colors are vertical. You have this color, then this color, and then this color. Like watch this dot over here. The dot is completely vertical on top of each other. That's what a gray coloration color apply does. Is it just makes the color go brightness up and down like that. But look at the dot on this head. It's more of a diagonal. So look really closely at those colors. The dark color is more saturated because the colors on this edge are really saturated and the colors on this edge are not saturated. They're really gray. So this color up at the top is like almost white. It's almost white. It's more gray. This color over here is really green. Like this is a very green shading. Meanwhile, this is a very white shading. So when you get this diagonal effect to the saturation of your colors, I think it makes it look a lot better. Because this is a very flat coloration scheme. It's just a brightness shift. And this over here is, it's a hue shift, or sorry, it's a saturation and brightness shift. You're shifting both the saturation and brightness. So it has a more dynamic feel. So since that's the case, like having it split up like this, where I have full control over all of the individual colors that are used, it's going to go a long way. It's going to be really, really useful. But it was a lot of work. And can't you do it with opacity change? Can you do it with opacity change? Can you do it with opacity change? I don't know. Can you do it with an opacity change? I am leaning towards no, but maybe. Maybe there's some really clever trick you could do to do that. Opacity would bleed background though. So that's what I'm thinking is that if there was you could use opacity, you would just need multiple layers. So what I'm thinking is like this is what I would experiment with. You have a red layer like this, or sorry, how about like how I would color it with opacity is you have a base layer that's full saturation, like this, and then you can put an opacity layer over top of it. Oh, come on. So if that's the primary layer, and then you took this layer, and then you decrease the opacity, so we'll like take this white and we'll turn it into like, come on, to that. Okay. And then you overtop that. So this is, you know, that kind of is the same thing though. Is it? No, because you could use a, I don't know. I don't think that you can. I don't think you can, because in order to use opacity, you would need to color the opaque segment, or the transparent segment. You would. I don't think that you can get. I don't think you can. I'm leaning towards no, but I could be wrong. But I don't think that it provides the same level of functionality that I'm looking for. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you could. Yes, stack layers. Yeah, and like that's the whole point with any solution is going to use stacked layers, because the idea is that different layers are going to have different colorations applied to them. So no matter what, you are going to have some combination of layers. The only question is, what's the best combination? I do know for a fact that this implementation I made here with like the main colors and the bold and stuff, I am certain that this will work. So at the very least, this is functional. The opacity idea, I'm going to think more about that. I think that if opacity could work, I don't think it would be more efficient than this. I think that this is just as efficient as stacking opaque layers. Any way you can access the image data, then change certain color pixels to other colors. I don't think so, because long story short, I don't think so. Shaders, exactly. Is that like, it's called post-processing, where while the game is running, there's code that can read the pixels being rendered to the screen and then just manually swap the colors out. But the thing is, yes. Long story short, yes, you can. What I thought when I read your question, I interpreted that as actually changing the file at runtime, which you can't do. But you can change the sprite as it's rendered. So like, you could render this sprite, but then you could have a shader running that says, any pixel that is this exact shade of green, we're going to swap it for this shade of green. Like, shaders are very simple program codes where it's literally reading the pixel data, reading what color is there, and then making adjustments. So sometimes the shader code is something like, take whatever pixel color you have and just decrease its opacity. Take whatever color you have and decrease its opacity by half. So that's an example of a shader, is that it reads the pixel data and then applies some logic to it. And sometimes the pixel logic data can be really specific, where it says, if the pixel is pure white, for example. If the pixel is white, well, I didn't apply it, but then apply it. But if it could also be, if the pixel is this exact coloration, then apply some specific logic to it. There's so many directions you could take it. I like using shaders, but if I'm able to do something with layers and just base sprites themselves, I think that I would prefer to do that instead. Color map shader logic is fairly simple, data-driven with old color to new color mapping. Okay. That's interesting. I will look into that. That's a cool idea. In fact, and that's the funny thing about shaders, is that I'm not very experienced with them. My experience with shaders is mostly just like changing the saturation and brightness and then adding overlays like darkness. What you're describing, I bet, is very real, and I bet it's something that people do all the time, but performance hits could be an issue, possibly. But there is still performance requirements of this too, so you just have to do a pro and con of each. That's a really interesting idea, and I'm gonna consider it. I'm gonna look into it. If you were to remake the whole game with the knowledge skills you have, how long would you have? Sorry, how long do you think it would have taken you now? So, maybe like a month. I'm not even joking. No, okay. So, to redo all of the code, because this is the thing, I am rewriting the game. I'm redoing all of the code, and it is going very fast. I'm doing a lot of great work very quickly. But the reason it's going so quick is because I already have all the assets. So, asset creation, like getting all the pixel art ready and prepared and organized and edited, that is such a time-consuming process that that alone is a big part of the iteration. And I learned a lot of coding, and I can code all this stuff very quickly now. But getting those assets to where they are today, that was an iterative process that I would not be able to replicate very easily. Even though, no, I wouldn't. It took years. It took years to get all of the assets to where they are today. And if I had to start fresh, it would take me not quite as long to get back to that point, but it would take a very long time. But in terms of the code itself, I internalized the coding of this game so well that I could recode it in a couple months. And that's not an exaggeration. Now, it would probably take a couple months to get it to like a baseline state, and then another couple months to polish it up. But the reason coding is taking so much time for me is because I'm iterating on the same code over and over and over again. And each iteration, I'm learning from it. So since that's the case, if I were to start fresh, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal because I already learned all this stuff. The hard part is behind me. I learned how to do it. I learned how to do all this coding stuff in a good way. I can just re-implement it, and I know how to do it. Art is... I'm not as confident. Art, I am not as confident. I spent so much time getting the art to where it is, and it's good. I love the art in this game, but it took so much time and iteration to get to this that I don't think that I'd be able to replicate it very easily. Yeah, I made the music. Is being a solo dev hard? Yes, it is hard. But it depends on what your goals are. Because if your goal is to learn game development and become a better game developer, and you are learning by making games like this, then no. I think that game development is a very manageable skill that you can build up over time. If you start with a game like this, and then next year you make a platformer, and the year after that you make an RPG, and then the year after that you make something a little bit more complex, then I think that you're going to have a pretty solid, reasonable time learning game development. But if you jump right in to making a really complex game and wonder why it's too hard, and just say like, oh, it's too hard for me, I can't do it, yeah, no wonder. So that's why I keep harping on this, is that game development is a skill that takes time to build up. It's like learning an instrument. It takes years of learning an instrument before you sound really good on it. So just enjoy the process. It'd be really stressful if like you bought a guitar and you were stressing out trying to play a perfect song, when it's like, dude, no, you have to learn how to play the guitar first before you can play a perfect song. I'm trying to like encourage people not to stress about, is what I'm getting at. It's a time-consuming process getting to the end. And the only requirement is that you don't give up. And I think the number one cause of people giving up is that they get way overwhelmed by their own projects. They get overwhelmed that things are taking so long and nothing is actually getting completed. And they just stop because they're like, oh, I actually don't have time for this. I don't have the effort. I can't put in all of the work it takes to get this done. But the truth is you could, if you're willing to stretch it out over years. But a lot of people aren't willing to do that. They kind of just want to jump right in and make really complex projects, and then they'll just burn out and stop. I just don't want anyone to burn out. Please don't burn out. Make reasonable games, and make games that you can get done. Treat it as a learning experience. Pretend that you're learning guitar and say like, this is me practicing my scales. And eventually, after practicing your scales for a long time, you'll be like, oh, okay, now I feel comfortable enough to actually attempt something challenging. Because that's also how you learn, by the way, is overcoming challenges. You have to challenge yourself in order to learn. You can't just like make little easy projects forever. You have to do challenging things. But you can't challenge yourself so much that you end up just burning out, because then you'll never get your game created. Like, you see games on Steam, and it might feel overwhelming, like, oh, I could never make a game that good. It would take me so long. And the truth is, yeah, it takes years. If there's a game on Steam and it's selling well, I can almost guarantee you that developer made several games before that one. And those several games probably did not sell very well, or it might not even have been enough for them to sustain their cost of living. That's why I don't really recommend indie solo game development as a career path, because you don't really make money off of it until you've been doing it at a loss for like a decade. I'm trying to match my, or like get a balance of my advice from being too like doom and gloom, because I don't want it to be doom and gloom. I want people to try and get good games created and be ambitious and challenge yourself. I just don't want people to get overwhelmed and quit, because if you quit, that's the only reason, that's the only thing stopping you from getting your game created, is if you quit. Like, as long as, if you work on your game forever, eventually it'll be done. So just don't quit. And also, if you work on your game forever, you're going to learn new things forever. You will never reach a point where you're going to stop learning. And as long as you keep learning, like, you're going to keep getting more efficient, and your games are going to keep getting better. But on that note, I think I'm going to call it quits for the day. It's been a really good stream. Thank you all so much for being here. We had a lot of folks in stream. Mon Meat, Ducks Are Neat, Blake, Riley, Wolf. Thank you so much for being here. I will be back again for yet another Moonshire Monday next week. And I will try to be on time this time, because this stream I started, I think, 7 minutes late, and I'm really sorry about that. Thank you for the donations. Thank you for the support, everyone. I really appreciate y'all being here. And I will be back I will be back next week for another Moonshire Monday. Enjoy McDonald's. Thank you. I'm going to be going to McDonald's right now. And I'm super pumped. I haven't eaten anything all day. But on that note, I'll be finishing things up. Thank you so... I'm so sorry for stuttering. I keep eating kind of all over the place in my head. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you all next week. Bye, everyone.